I was asked by a local church pastor for advice, as he knew I was sleeping out on the streets, or I had experience of doing so, to help a fellow who was new to the island and to this town. It turns out this chap was Bulgarian, which makes him an EU citizen. I gave via the medium of the pastor to the Bulgarian information pertinent to him, such as the soup run at 8 p.m, the Methodist Church Hall at 3 p.m. on a Sunday, and the 5 Loaves from 10 a.m. Monday to Friday. All this information applies to Bray town, but Bray represents every town on this island. I seen the new fella at the Methodist Church Hall then that Sunday, and I hoped that he would go to the soup run that night, which it transpired he did. I got to talking to him over the next few days. He had to get away from the lack of opportunity and from the paltry chances to better yourself in Bulgaria. He had family difficulties too. He spent a few days in Holland, but found that place unwelcoming. Sometimes you don't get the run of luck, or you are a bad fit. So because he had some fluency in English, he decided to bypass Britain and its Brexit regulations, and came to Ireland instead and its employment prospects. When he came to Bray, his instinct was to go to the Main Street Catholic Church, but he got a closed door on his face, so ended up in the aforementioned pastor's church. You ask the question when it comes to anybody like this: what is the Christian thing to do? What is the humane thing to do? But what he then told me had me flabbergasted. That the 5 Loaves homeless drop-in centre told him they wouldn't deal with him unless he had documentation that satisfied their bar, and even then he would be on a waiting list. This was beginning to sound like a club, but a club you didn't want to join. The 5 Loaves have it in their gift to decide policy. At the moment they require that you register with Wicklow County Council as homeless, but they still operate under discretion. So for some they do not demand such a letter, and then there are others who use the service that have a roof over their heads. Now under this apartheid system, if you camp in Bray but are registered to another council as homeless, you cannot use the service no matter how many years you are here. This applies whether you are Irish or foreign born. Then you have others who are sleeping out who do not want to register as homeless, for it will lead to more bureaucracy and impositions if they do so. If you think about it, our homeless problem are embryonic shantytowns. It looks like it will get worse as migration comes in and housing and rents do not match to it. But then add a potential economic crisis, which could see the surplus in the tax books crash into a multi-billion deficit. We normalise the homeless problem, so therefore we will quickly normalise massive shantytowns and the god-awful poverty associated with it. We justify such misery through divine will, or liberal economics, or the belief that the full-on Marxist inheritance is around the corner. I accept many homeless are there through choice. Therefore they are not homeless. They just want to live outdoors. But the majority are there through addiction, or psychiatric or physical infirmities, or minimum spondylics, or no availability of accommodation, or outsider reasons. The outsider including the square pegs in the round hole that society finds hard to tolerate. It also includes those who do not play the game and actually act like they are members of an advanced civilization and they care for their fellow beings. Going back to the 5 Loaves. There are times when there are very few in that dinner house, or soup kitchen if you like, especially after 2 p.m. in the summer. Why can't they let in the Bulgarian, or Romanian, or any other state you care to mention for a shower and a cup of coffee for an hour? Why can't they work with him to get his documentation in order? Why can't they work with other agencies to advise him when it comes to getting work, or welfare, or housing, or medical attention? He went back the next day to the 5 Loaves, and again the gate was firmly shut. People had been advocating on his behalf with the charity, and yet there was no give. I would like to think if I was in a foreign country with financial and skill resources like Ireland, I would be looked after even though I come from another state and I have minimal means. Even if I had no documentation, I would be looked after. Isn't it the right thing to do? There are many coming out to Bray to get away from the violence and chaos of Dublin City. This includes the Roma Gypsy community. I've seen so many new faces. Then adding to this mix the hidden homeless who camp or squat around the town and do not engage in services or are ever registered on any census. In this era of affluence, the homeless are the canaries in the coal mine. They are the walking monuments whose faces betray the savagery of modern Irish society. It is written on them, how as a nation and a community do we treat these people? None of the gypsies that reside in the town have told me that they use the 5 loaves, but they do not use the Travellers Network either, even though I have advised them that they will get looked after effectively and efficiently there more so than any other organisation in the town. The 5 loaves can do what it likes. It is a private charity. The only thing I ask of it is that it is transparent about its policies, so that potential users from where they stand and potential and extant donors are aware of what their money is funding. Remember this, he or she who pays the piper calls the tune. So if we end up with caterwauling from the piper, it's the soul and control of the person's fault, ultimately. Giving a few bucks to a charity doesn't exculpate the soul from your responsibility to think through and engage and demand when it comes to those in a difficult place within the community or beyond. You can't buy yourself into heaven. This attitude is way more damning than the policy of an organisation like the 5 Loaves or similar charities up and down this island. This apartheid is not unique to the 5 Loaves. The converse is the Mendo on Island Street in Dublin, also known as the Mendicity or Mendicity. Here they demand to register you and take a lot of private details off you. This control leads to it being geared to foreign nationals, mainly Eastern Europeans, last time I was there. I know a service in Ireland not keen on Irish citizens and a service funded by the Irish taxpayer and Irish business. I can live with that once they are honest about it and publicise it. It's just I am not a fan of apartheid. That's all. Then you have the Lighthouse on Pier Street, a service that started out for heroin addicts as the methadone clinic is next door to it. Then it expanded to the homeless and streets community. Then it became recently about the refugee community and undocumented workers. Again they ask questions. Why all these organisations ask private invasive questions is beyond me. Church Street Dinner House is the only one that doesn't ask a heap of questions, but how long will that last? But now, with the Lighthouse, it seems to have reduced down to a select approved group who use the service, that the God borders who run it give the nod to. And as well, their enforcers who control the gates have first judgment on who to let in. From what I can see, the people that are acceptable to them are those who look the other way, and those who squeal, and those who partake in destruction. The old sick sad story of Ireland, of the bar of the lowest common denominator, LCD, being set, and people allowing themselves to be dragged down. Of course, if you had a dinner house, soup kitchen, or hostel, or another homeless service that had an apartheid system that was not based on nationality, or race, or religion, or being a sellout. Instead, the bar was about being kind and courageous and collegiality, the opposite of what the services demand today. So being the best of what human beings can be. Setting a standard, and then inculcating a standard, and then fusing a standard. But why would such a place be separate from universality with the rest of society? It wouldn't. Because those kind of people with those admirable attributes who work and own homes and run businesses wouldn't see the people camping out or on the streets as different or separate. What a thought. To be surrounded by people who are not truly liars. For now, society is a lie. Thank you and consider subscribing.